probably shouldn't waste all this podcast gold on the pre-show.
Oh, he said it'd be there in 5.
Okay.
I sit down and I hit the button. So some of the pre-show stuff does find its way into other things. Like, I don't know if you saw, but I put up the kaiju stuff. And part of that,
my wife listened to it. So Sally wants you to know that it was not a lava bird. It is Rodan, and that it is awesome. She did qualify it with like, it's your opinion and you can't be wrong, but it is awesome and that you were wrong.
Okay, I don't have any problem with Rodan the lava bird. Let me clarify. So, I would be down if Rodan had had more time and actually, like, gone against Godzilla instead of just getting destroyed by Gazrilla. Who did he fight? Gazrilla,
King
right?
Ghidorah?
Ghidorah.
Yeah.
My problem with the Rodan sequence is that when Rodan flaps his wings, people fly up in the air and forwards as if he was beating his wings like this, but he's flying this way. I don't remember
seeing anything wrong with the way that I don't remember the flapping or
the physics of Rodan. The physics of Rodan are wrong.
Okay.
And that it was what I think was what my problem was with most of that movie in general. I didn't dislike that movie entirely. I had a good time watching it, but like a lot of that movie doesn't make a lot of sense when you watch the 3 before it and you're like, wait a minute, or the 2 before it, I guess. You've lined up all the way these things work, and then now you're just like kind of picking and choosing which ones work and how and whose powers are more. It just was like weird to me. But she has an opinion, and also she can't be wrong because it's her opinion. And I don't think Rodan is uncool. I just thought it was not as cool as other stuff. Oh, anyway, if the YouTube of that was great because I got to change it over from carbon scoring to kaiju scoring with like a bunch of blood splatter. And then the end of that segment was just like random Boba Fett talk that we had done sometime. I can't remember when. I was just like, well, I'll just throw this in the end of here. I keep telling people, I told somebody the other day that just if you like movies, you should just watch that Godzilla movie. That first one for sure.
Oh yeah. I think that they're all good. I agree with you that like the tone and the structure has gotten lighter and more aimed at like popcorn good time, Pacific Rim type stuff as the series has moved on. Mm-hmm. But I have really enjoyed that series, and I agree that that Godzilla movie is. I feel the same way about that Gareth Edwards Godzilla movie that I do about 28 Days Later.
Oh yeah,
that's like the most artistic, carefully crafted version of that genre that we're gonna get. Like we're never gonna get a zombie movie that is more artistic than 28 Days Later, and we're never gonna get a kaiju movie that's more artistic than the Edwards. I'm kind of curious as to why he's not, because I don't think he's done anything since Rogue One, and I'm kind of curious as to why. Because like, I mean, maybe he's just kind of burned out and has enough money, and so he doesn't need to worry about it anymore. But it seems odd that he would stop at that point, because he really knocked it out of the park with those 2 movies, and
I don't
he
understand
seems to have just sort of disappeared.
Yeah. I would literally watch him film ice melting. I think he would make it interesting. I know that Rogue One movie had a major re-edit in it. There's things in the trailers that don't exist in the movie. And that can be really stressful, like being told that everything that you did had to be redone and having to make something good based on somebody else. Like I want to see the Gareth Edwards cut of that movie, the original cut of what he intended for Rogue One. Because I'm sure you don't.
It would not surprise me at all if at some point we get that on Disney Plus.
You think so? Like the original Rogue One cut? That'd be kind of interesting.
That wouldn't, as much as they like recutting and doing different versions of stuff, especially if they can sell it.
I wonder though, because they also have all these people that like are, let's say, extremely concerned about canon. And
but if they're like, here's the original cut, this isn't the canon version, but we thought you guys might want to see this.
I guess there are uncanonized things now on Disney Plus. So
yeah, they say Legends right on the branding.
Yeah,
like they for the
Ewoks.
And the Gendy stuff too.
Yeah,
the Gendy's part of the vintage collection.
And it's not like the canon cares that much about canon anymore. They were like, well, I mean, we're right 99% of the time. It doesn't matter if Kanan's origin story changes.
It doesn't matter if Max Rebo's dead.
Yeah.
No, Rebo has something on the inside. Like he knows when to get out of town. He's like,
he knew.
Was it?
Oh, don't even start. Don't even. No,
I'm sorry. I missed the earlier conversation.
Do you think Max is how? Oh man, Max and Luke are working together. Although, wait, hold on.
we don't know that Rebo's not a Force user. Like that's the.
I know it's unlikely that we'll get another season of this show, but if Max shows up again, he will have survived 2 deadly blasts.
Yeah,
because he was in the sanctuary too, right?
So you're saying he's got spider senses?
He must, or he went out the back again. He was working with somebody again.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He stepped out the back to take a smoke break.
The real villain was Max Rebo all along.
No, don't even start that. Quit trying to blame Max.
I'm just waiting for like some type of some fan edit where they just put in him sitting on the throne saying, "I'm the daimyo now."
He's got Boba's armor halfway down his chest. It doesn't zip.
Just like the helmet's on askew.
So Kit is apparently the guy to go to know what they're gonna do next with Star Wars, as long as it's done by Favreau and or Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, if
they know what
Rodriguez is right there. He's like, oh, okay, this is gonna be a good season.
I think literally you are the definition of finger on the pulse now, my friend.
Yes, I actually have one of those Lobot things in my brain, and that just transmits straight to Robert Rodriguez's laptop.
He's like, it just types itself.
Yeah.
Lobot and Echo. Echo has that too now too.
Yeah.
Oh, Echo. Yeah, that's right. I like that they keep bringing that back. They did it in Rebels too with the guy that went a little bit crazy because he tried to store too much stuff in there. The Rodian.
Yeah, the Rodian. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that they keep bringing that little piece of gear back on other people. Okay.
There's a one modification on some character, maybe in Clone Wars, where like they only have half a head. Am I mixing? Do you guys remember seeing that at all from Clone Wars? Like there's a person who has the same kind of thing, but like because of their species, the head just goes whoop, right back. Like
whoa.
I'd have to pull it up from somewhere.
Weird.
But yeah. That was the crazy design. I'm like, oh, but then like as soon as you saw that gear piece, it's like, oh, well, I see what they're doing, but that's crazy.
So I think we have to start with the most important question from Book of Boba Fett, which is Mayor Machshez actually Mayor McCheese?
Yes. It's just a pronunciation thing.
Yep. That's the number one question I had after reading the article that was linked to us by Michael. And in that article, it says that Book of Boba Fett is kind of like a farce. And I think in the way that it is non-offensive, like, oh, it's a farce, it's terrible. That's not what they're talking about. I think farce as in the old play version of like things get so ridiculous that at certain points you can't do anything but laugh a little bit.
In the same way that like oh god, Frasier was farce. It was just like so out there.
Yeah, a little out there, but people might take that the wrong way. So I wanted to define that ahead of time, because I realized that a couple episodes in, it felt like the idea of confusion or impossible situations and this type of stuff was the point. A little bit. Like, the idea of Boba Fett just becoming this massive, super cool bad guy was not what the show was going to go for. And I think the last time we talked was episodes 1 through 4, and it was all about Boba Fett, and we were kind of still at the point of wondering what it was about, what were we doing. And then we made some predictions, all of which turned out to be true.
Well, I don't think so. Who did we say was going to show up?
We literally said
Dengar and
no.
And
I put the kibosh on Dengar. I put the kibosh on Dengar.
We might have been off on a few things.
Well,
because we going, like, some of them were like, this is just fun. Why not? Anything could happen.
Bosk was a good pull and should have been there, but they did the next best thing by putting Black Chrysanthemum in the Trandoshan quarter during the fight.
Yeah.
I was like, really? We're gonna see the Trandoshans try to kill a Wookiee, and nope. But other than the 2 bounty hunters, I mean, we got. Here's the spoiler time. I'm just say it right up front. We got Cad Bane, which was one of the ones that we thought there's no way, but it could happen. We got the Rancor riding. We got Luke Skywalker was in there in our productions.
We didn't have Ahsoka, I don't think. That was surprising. I just figured we'd be ready too much. We're planning too much for her show. So, like, they're probably going to, like, anything with her is going to be over there. Like, there's going to be building up stories for that, so they won't have time. Like, but there we go.
I thought we all kind of...
We had so many...
I don't think any of us thought Ahsoka was going to show up.
No, because I think what we thought was going to happen was a little bit of world building for the other shows by bringing in some characters and then going back to Boba Fett. And what maybe happened in these last 3 episodes, and then we can talk about all the cool stuff that happened in the last 3 episodes, but overall as a show, I think the show said Boba Fett is a little bit of a side character that is kind of, like, think about it. Like, he showed up and he froze Han Solo and stuck him on a wall. Like, that's kind of funny, and now he shows up and he thinks he's the boss, and he's not really good at being the boss. And so, like, all these things kind of stack up for maybe the theory of the Book of Boba Fett being like, so you guys wanted some more Boba Fett, we gave it to you, and now you kind of see, like, maybe he's not the main character of this universe. He's just kind of there on the side. Look at all these other characters that are here that have more to tell you.
I did think it was funny. So when episodes 5 and 6 came out and Boba Fett is either not in it or hardly in it, and when he is in it, he doesn't say anything, and people were like, how is this the Book of Boba Fett? This is just the Mandalorian. And somebody said, well, you guys were complaining that you wanted original trilogy Boba Fett, so here he is. He's a side character, and he doesn't say anything. So there you go.
It's exactly along the line that I was thinking.
It's completely, like, just happenstance. But I love that it's in Star Wars episodes 5 and 6 is when you get the most amount of Boba Fett. But in Book of Boba Fett, episodes 4, 5 and 6 is when you get the least amount of Boba Fett.
There's a lot happening.
That's
kind of on purpose, probably. Like,
it's like poetry. It rhymes.
It does. I mean, I really think that like a bantha, farce, like a serious farce.
So happy.
I don't think they were making fun of the character when I say that they're trying to show you how a little bit ridiculous things are. But having Danny Trejo show up as a Rancor keeper is farcical, right? Like, riding a Rancor around town saying those droids are going to destroy all of town, and then showing up with a Rancor and destroying all of town anyway.
Yeah, goes King Kong and just like,
well, that part's not his fault. He got knocked off or whatever. By Cad Bane, but showing up with the Rancor who's jumping on buildings and all, like, clearly he doesn't care about the town getting destroyed. But he said in the farcical sense of, like, the stage play comedy thing, like, oh, they're gonna destroy the town, There's a little bit of that Last Stand Magnificent Seven stuff going on, and there's a lot of The Godfather going on. There's a lot of homage in the show. So much so that like when people say, "Oh, it's exactly this," it's like, no, it's not exactly anything. I think Robert Rodriguez and Jon Favreau made a show that loosely started with like some sort of structure, right? Like the first couple episodes was like Dances with Wolves, and the next couple episodes was definitely The Godfather, and then the last couple episodes are like, I don't know, whatever Kurosawa movies you want to throw out there.
And then there's a splash of just kaiju movie in there. There's a little bit of just
it's a lot.
That.
And so like when Western. When you get to the end,
the Cobb Vanth, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Freeway shootout.
I've never been so excited and so sad at the same time. When Cad Bane starts walking out of the desert, and I'm like, yes, it's gonna happen. And then you sit there and you're watching the scene and you start to nod your head like, this is so oh no, Cad Bane's gonna shoot Cobb Vanth dead in the street, because there's no way Favreau and Rodriguez and Filoni bring Cad Bane and he doesn't shoot dead the first person he sees. Like, you have to introduce this character in live action to all the people that have never seen him before, and you have to introduce him in a bad way because he's not a good man. It means the people in front of him are all gonna die. It's like that roller coaster of emotion. Where it's just,
I can't wait to see him face off against Ahsoka. That's gonna be great.
You think he's coming back? The little beacon. Do we think Toto was waiting for the little beacon? Yep. Is that the thing?
Toto 360's off because he's got like this. He's the guy who's been force choked by a Jedi and says, you know what? Now I'm gonna hook up pipes from here to here that go directly to my lungs so that no one can force choke me again unless they think about crushing my little pipes. So now they can't. So then that's why later on, I think it's later in the Clone Wars, like someone pulls that, he's like, no, I'm good. Bam, 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 bam. Like he still keeps going. Like that's the type of guy he is. So he has a jacket that's like teched out that has like beeping lights that keep him alive, like Vader. He's like, I'm not. I honestly,
when I saw the thing, there's no blood coming out of the injury, right? And it's Star Wars. There's hardly ever blood because they use things that cauterize people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I understand if this is not a thing. They're going to show another shot where he's not lying there anymore. But that beeping to me was like an AED or some other like resuscitation device, like getting ready to charge. Like it had that, where it was clearly something that was either preventing him from looking alive or preventing him from dying or sending out some. I don't think you linger on a shot of something flashing and beeping that long unless you're telling people, don't worry, your character that you like is not dead.
When you started diving into the animated stuff.
Yeah, a long time ago. No.
Yeah. And I think it was before Mando started, because that's when we started.
We started doing this when I started watching the Clone Wars. That's why we started doing this.
And so you had you started getting seeds and stuff like that. So it's like you've had now this time to build up to be like, Cad Bane, yes. Like there's a timeline where it's just like, oh yeah, the blue guy showed up, and it's like
we gotten to the point that like we are past Return of the Jedi, and Cad Bane is still hanging around. And Boba Fett's like, you're an old man. He's like, yeah, but I'm still faster than you, dude. Like,
yeah.
And he's got to go out some sort of cool way. And as much as that might have been a cool moment for fans of Boba Fett, it was not a cool moment for fans of Cad Bane.
Like, there's all the stuff that they developed, because we talked a bit about the cutscene from a Clone Wars episode that I still feel could end up in a Bad Batch episode at this point. Is that he, in addition to the helmet that was, or the dent in the helmet that's supposed to be from Cad Bane, Bane has his kind of like prosthetic piece
metal plate in his head,
plate in his head from that same duel. So it's like Lucas always often did. He didn't throw stuff away. He just repurposed it later on, and I can completely see them still being like, okay, we're just going to repurpose the story at this point at some point down the line, because he's between Filoni and the different historians at LucasArts or Lucasfilm, they still want to bring back pieces of that lore because they liked how good it was. They're like, oh, well, we can still have this fit in somewhere. So I hope we still get that point. Like, there's going to be a point where, like, Boba finds out about Omega, and like that's the point where they're like, no, Cad Bane's there to capture Omega, and he's like, no, you're leaving her alone, and it's like that's the drawdown. Like that's what causes the split.
Okay. In Bad Batch, the Boba tries to say, although Boba in those original deleted scenes is pretty young.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be.
Well, I mean, that's
still pretty young at that point. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
could happen. That's the thing, though, is like it is all digital, so you just kind of like it. Timeline wise, he's going to be younger, but so is Omega. So that's why, like, but then that gives us the question of, or the answer is, does Boba know about Omega?
I'm not sure Boba Fett is the most tactically minded person, let's say.
Agreed. I like that Fennec had to be like, stop it. Don't do this now.
Well, like, also Din's like, okay, so like, here's the best way we could deal with this is run out in the street and start fighting, or we can sit here and die in this little sanctuary thing. And Boba's plan is like, no, let's just sit here and die. Din's like, are you sure? I mean, I'll do it, but... And then eventually, he convinces him to use the distraction of them to jump out into the street with jetpacks, which was pretty cool. He has no tactics for his Freetown people that show up. It's just sort of like, just keep shooting. And the Technicolor mod squad shows up, and it's just like, just keep shooting.
Man, I don't know they through all of it, they never quite felt, to me, they never fully earned their keep. Even with their spin shots and all, like, I'm like they just never felt like, oh no, they are a force to be reckoned with. Like they're, I want more from them. It's I don't know.
I don't think many people. I think that's the point, though. I don't think many of these people earned their like Black Chrysanthemum is clearly a better fighter than everybody. Cad Bane is clearly a better fighter than almost everybody. And he's even outthinking his own bosses, right? Like Cad Bane gets hired by the Pikes, and he shows up to tell the Pikes, like, okay, I took care of Freetown, which he kind of didn't. Let's say that's maybe his fault, but
he underestimated the bartender.
He certainly did. The Weequay.
Who doesn't have a freaking name? Still bothers me.
It's called Weequay.
Yeah. Like that's so. It's so problematic. Like, really, he's lived here for years, guys. Like. No,
they're waiting for the action figure.
I think at this point, it's one of those things like his name is Barkeep, and everyone just calls him Barkeep because I know it's more problematic because it's his race, and like we're not gonna get into what that means. You know what I mean? But he's like the only Weequay in town. So what I'm saying is it's worse than we think, but it's also better than we think. You know what I mean?
He's made peace with it, is what you're saying. He's like, well,
yeah, I'm the only Weequay here. I guess they're just not gonna call me by my name.
They can't pronounce my name in their tongue, so I just go with Weequay. It's fine.
Yeah. It was kind of cool to see the town come together with the rurals and all that sort of stuff, and whatever they were trying to say about that, and trust, and it just definitely felt like this was a very solidly packed and defined story that somehow included the Mandalorian and Grogu and Luke and Cad Bane and Cobb Vanth and Fennec Shand and 5 criminal syndicates. And
I mean, well, if you look at Mandalorian season 2, which is kind of the same thing. It's like, oh yeah, you've got the Mandalorian story, Mandalorian Grogu, okay, but then you also have the Bo-Katan of it all, because you also know about what goes on with her, what happens with Ahsoka. Then you also get the bits about how Bo-Katan interacts with Moff Gideon, and then there's the Fennec Shand and Boba story in there too. Like it's very similarly where it's like, oh no, it's Mando's story, but all these people are playing a role in it, and it's very fulfilling in the end, because it's like, I mean, yeah, they didn't balance out the Boba at all in episodes 5 and 6, but it's
on purpose. I'm telling you.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely on purpose, but it is definitely like by the end of it, I am like, oh, that was a really good meal. Like I'm like, if we're talking about them, like you're enjoying these different courses, like at the end of it, you're like, this was fantastic, and you had a little bit of that. Boba came back like, oh, well, you know, they used the truffle here, but then they also used it in the dessert. It was great. It all came together.
But I think what your point was earlier, where you're like, oh, Boba might be in 2 episodes, and I can't. Since you have the pulse, you got to answer this for me. Was this show, I mean, I personally believe we're done. I don't think there's a season 2. Was this show because while they were writing Mando, they're like, shoot, we have like some stuff to say about Boba Fett, and like it doesn't really fit into Mando. Why don't we just take a pause in between seasons and just finish that story out? Because it feels like this was just part of an extended Mando season that they couldn't really keep the Boba Fett stuff sprinkled in enough to keep it going through that season. And it would have felt wrong to just skip the people would have been PO'd if it was like, no, this is just part of Mandalorian 2 and it just continues going. But like by the end of this, we get a very succinct and good explanation for a lot of people that didn't know anything about the Darksaber, with a lot of cool other stuff like the Vizslas and other things thrown in there, and a complete sea change from the end of Mando season 2 with Grogu. So that by the time Mando season 3 starts, people that didn't watch Book of Boba are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
Why the Razor Crest get so small? I don't understand.
Why is Grogu not with Luke?
Yeah.
So what is Kit Book of Boba Fett at the end of the day?
I feel like it was. I look at it, and this just conveniently fits into the way the structure that we accidentally backed into. But the Book of Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett was like a mini series that they were like, we have all of these stories that we want to tell. Like when they were making the Boba Fett episode of Mandalorian season 2, they were like, we have all of these ideas, you know, for these Boba Fett stories, but we don't really want to take 4 episodes out of the middle of Mandalorian to tell them. That doesn't feel right, so we'll make a miniseries. And then they were like, well, wouldn't it be great to have that miniseries lead right into a crossover event where we have Mandalorian? Yeah, we got Mandalorian. We got a side launch for the Ahsoka series. We got Boba Fett worked in, and we can get everybody together, and we can do all of these cool things. We'll do that in the last 3 episodes when we've brought everybody together. And to me, I was actually kind of surprised at the number of people. I'm surprised in general at the negativity about of the fan reaction to this show in general. But it surprised me for the 2 episodes, for episodes 5 and 6, when people were like, "There's no Boba Fett in this. Like this is ridiculous." And I felt the same way as Ken. I was like, this is grade A Star Wars. And if Boba Fett's not in this episode at all, I'm okay with that, because I am really happy with the story that we just got. And it's still, like, even at the time, you could see where it was going. Like, you knew that it was going to tie back in. It's not like it was out of nowhere. Right. So, like, it's all the same story, and it's going to end up there eventually. And I will take all of the great storytelling that I can get, because that story of him on the Ring World with
so cool.
Vizsla, and learning more about that was cool. Man. And then they go to Tatooine, and he gets the Naboo fighter, and he's pod racing through the canyon, and I'm like, man, this is fantastic.
Oh, I went back when we were texting about it when it happened. I went back. There are definitely buildings in that canyon in the prequels.
There's actually. Yeah, they are there in Phantom Menace. I have just never noticed them.
Yeah, they were much more defined.
White in the
I think he didn't use film at that point. He used digital cameras, but like the coloration, the color grading in Mando is much brighter. Like every highlight is bright, and everything that's not a highlight is much more dark and contrasty. And so when I went and looked back during episode 1, everything's kind of like one color. Like the buildings are the same colors as the canyon walls, so they're very hard to see. This is an interesting change to like paint them all white in the intervening 30 years.
That was like the first thing that I did at the end of that episode. I watched that episode, and then I rewatched that episode, and then I went back and I was like, were there those buildings there before? And so I went back and watched the pod race again and stopped it. I'm like, oh nope, they're there. They're just, I'd never noticed them because they're not exactly the same color, but you're right. The canyon walls in Boba Fett are darker, and the houses are all like whitewashed.
Yep.
And in the original one,
it's all
they're
red.
made out of it's like the same adobe.
Yeah.
The adobe houses are made of the same, very similar color as the walls of the canyon.
Since the Hutts stopped having control of the housing market, they went ahead and they went privately owned. So
no more HOA.
Exactly. They went in and painted it white because it definitely helps with resale value. The heat costs are down because 2 suns, that cooling bill is going to be through the roof.
I like that you called it like vintage or like perfect Star Wars, because I think people had kind of lost a lot of sight of maybe how fun Star Wars was, especially with maybe episode 4 it was like fun. Han's joking around all the time. He's smarmy. Like Luke's having a great time blowing things up in his X-Wing. When I saw the Rancor in the final episode and he's walking down the street and it kind of looks claymation janky on purpose, I was like, they are making this show as an original Star Wars thing. They're not making it like to make the best sci-fi thing they can make. They literally even looked at the aesthetics of the original Rancor and made it look like that. When it's in shots with people, it looks less CG than when it's in shots on its own.
They did that with like the Spider-Monk 2 and some of the intros and stuff, and like the creatures in a lot of opening shots and stuff like that. They did it to appear they slow. I believe they slowed down some of the speeds. I'm trying to think of the term for it, but I saw something how they slowed it down so that they still had that same kind of stop motion feel to it.
Jitter.
Because they are trying to make it feel like you, and that's actually the perfect point, is that they're trying to be more Star Wars and lend to the language that we had learned there, as opposed to making it modern day sci-fi. Like it doesn't have to be The Expanse. Everything doesn't have to keep being, and that's not a dig on The Expanse. I just say,
I mean, The Expanse is a great show, but it's not a Star Wars show.
Right, and as we continue to make sci-fi things, and we think that, or some producers and creators might think, oh, we have to push things in this direction. It's like, oh no, we can still keep to this old aesthetic that is, to a certain degree, like it's just those old movie serials that Lucas watched. And like when you talk about, oh, the Naboo Starfighter, that's exactly something that's him going back and being like, oh, I love Flash Gordon. I just want to have a ship that just kind of like looks like that, and that's pulling back to that aesthetic that is so in the DNA of Star Wars. If not, essentially it's, that's Star Wars. It's like, oh no, that's because it's part of what Star Wars came from. It's the roots.
And they put a hot rod like engine, like literally there's a carburetor sticking out of the top of the thing. Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Was this a Mad Max reference? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, it's like so cold air intake in space. What is that for? Yeah, that was pretty good. Oh, I mean, we're talking about rebuilding the Naboo Starfighter. We got to talk about it. It isn't him, right? It's not him. It can't be him. It wasn't BD-1.
BD? No.
It has to be a different BD droid, right? It wasn't painted red in certain spots. I got my heart up and I thought, oh my God, are they saying BD? That's BD-1, or is it just a BD droid? I got really excited. It could be BD-1, and then I thought, if that is BD-1 and he's on Tatooine,
he doesn't have the same markings.
Yeah, we have a major problem with Cal Kestis then, because, yeah. Although, it is interesting to throw out there, and I'll see how you guys feel about this. The BD-1 reference and Cad Bane in the same series. Cal Kestis is the one that finds the holocron that Cad Bane stole.
I don't know if this is necessarily the exact same holocron. They are holocrons in the idea that it's, I mean, essentially it's like saying like, oh, they found the same hard drive. It's like they could be different hard drives that have similar data.
Okay, because the type of holocron that Cad stole was the young Force users one for them to go make Inquisitors. And that's the one that Cad and Cal. Oh man, both with CAs. Yikes. Also is using in that game, right? I mean, it may not exactly be the same one, but it's pretty interesting to have BD and
so close
and CAD at the same time, and they're both connected by a type of thing like that, right? I don't think that that's the reference and that's that deep of a pull that they're getting ready to make. But putting a BD droid in there, I don't know. Maybe Ahsoka and Cal. It would be too late. Cal would have to have survived a lot of stuff in between.
I think he could have. I think because space can be a big place.
Everybody has. Why not him?
Yeah. I think it comes down to that we have a game in the works. So they're like, we can't.
Remember that BD droid?
Won't touch on. Yeah, we won't touch on it until we see
what happens
in that next game. But I mean, trust me, I had like when we did the scene Stone on Tython, we were just like, who could it be? But it's like now I know we're deeper in development, so I'm like, I'm sure they're kind of like, oh no, we'll put a moratorium on this. We'll hands off until we get that answer.
You think they're waiting for an answer, or is Filoni and all the TV people and the LucasArts historians involved in navigating Cal through the universe in general? Or are they just going to keep them segregated and say, it's cool that a BD droid came across? I don't know.
Have we had any characters who have shown up first in a video game? Not a character who was in a cartoon or a live action who's shown up in a video game and then come back, but like have we ever had it go that direction where a character who was made up for a video game actually showed up in anything live action or TV for Star Wars? I can't think of any that have actually gone that way.
Has Prince Caesar been mentioned in live action? I don't think so.
No, not in live action.
Shadows is an odd situation because Shadows was yes, they had a video game, but it was also a book and a comic all at the same time.
Yeah.
So that would be a good. And was Caesar even in the video game?
Yeah. No, he wasn't in the game. You went to his skyhook, and he's in the cutscenes, but I don't think he's in. He's definitely in the cutscenes of the game. What's interesting is that when I finished watching Boba Fett this series, I felt like I had just gone through that multimedia storm that was Shadows again. Like everything about this was literally like, this is the Shadows of the Empire moment for the modern TV shows, right? Everybody knows the movies, right? But they don't know about Shadows of the Empire, a lot of people, and how it went in between these movies and filled a lot of gaps and told you where some of the characters went in between and, why Luke's there, all that sort of stuff that Shadows was like trying to fill in. This is that again. It just happened on the screen instead of in a book. And that's why I was like, oh my God, they called it Book of Boba Fett because it's literally like a middle filler book between all this other stuff. Revelatory for me when I was like, this is that moment again. Very cool.
I don't think we could expect too much from Cal the more I think about it, due to it's not necessarily that Filoni wouldn't. I mean, they already pulled the BD droid from the design, so that is there. But it's not like the cartoons where Filoni had a hand in it or there was a closer attachment to them. It is an outside company that developed a fair amount of that. It's still Star Wars, but it is a creation. Essentially, it's like kind of, I'd say it's kind of like the Genndy Tartakovsky stuff. It's like, okay, it's created within Star Wars, but it is from a different team, so the development didn't come from that same house. I guess so. It's like until we got a little more of a final idea about Cal and where those stories are going to go, I don't imagine too much coming over from there. I mean, because we are, and there's things that can come over like the droids or like the Inquisitors that can still have a footprint, but are still kind of also in other parts of Star Wars. Like there's the Night Sisters, or there's a few different things. It comes down to what specifically Cal is Cal and those on his ship. Like a lot of the other things, like you've had the other Inquisitors in other comics, and you've had them in other media. If we got a holocron or something from the name of the master, the two different masters, there's Seer, and then there's the one that was with BD, the old guy from
starts with an A.
Stargate. Yeah. But like, if we could have those, I don't know. Of course, I'd be happy as heck to have Cal and some of those other actors.
Cordova.
Characters. Cordova, right?
It locked up the whole browser, and then after it locked up the whole browser, I tried to Control-Alt-Delete the browser, and Control-Alt-Deleting the browser nixed my entire computer. It just froze the entire computer. Has that happened to you before? You're shaking your head like it has.
I'm totally serious. I have had so many problems with the ads that are on Wikipedia that I do not go to that site unless I absolutely have to.
Wow.
I will go to any other site besides Wikipedia because I don't know who's doing their ads, but it's almost like a virus that's just designed to crash your computer.
It crashed the entire computer, like hard crashed the computer. I literally locked up.
They have so much because like I go to other advertising funded websites and I don't generally have that problem, but I mean it's like 80% of the time that I go to Wikipedia I have some kind of browser crash
amazing.
Or all my RAM miraculously gets used up, and like I don't know who's doing their ads, but
I thought the computer overheated for a minute.
Job.
I thought like something bad had happened and like my CPU had overheated and I had like thermal crashed or something. I've never seen that before, that type of lockup.
Are those all Coke? You don't have any Sprite? Oh, you can't hear me yet.
I wish I could hear you.
That's why you just need a little earbud you can fit underneath it.
Oh yeah, I could do that. I could put earbuds under it. You're right. Let me do that.
Just
Don't switch audio. Why did it switch the audio?
Yeah,
Ken, we messed it all up. We messed it all up, Ken.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, he switched his headsets for a quick second, and it messed with his audio settings.
Yeah, I remembered that if you change any hardware inputs, then the
Discord is like,
no, it's not Discord. I have to use Voice Meter now, so I can do stuff like
hold on to your butts
in post.
So I have to use a separate. I have to use a separate thing.
Welcome to Jurassic Park. Get to the chopper!
To do that stuff, I have to use Voice Meter, but Voice Meter freaks out if you change any hardware. If you change any hardware while it's open, it's like, nope, I'm just not functional anymore.
You've got to correct this now.
The problem is, Ken, that this is too short.
Yeah.
So I have to get a. Okay, next time I will do it for next time because I don't think I can get it on with my.
I wouldn't even try. That's just going to be
just painful.
Yeah.
You know,
speaking, I have some extensions, I think.
I'm sure I have a 2.5 extension somewhere. You know what we haven't talked about yet? Kit and I have to talk about it, Ken. So if you'd like to go, you're welcome. You're welcome to quit anytime after
if this is about kaiju, starts. I do have one more Star Wars thing.
No, this is Star Wars related.
Okay.
But you go do your thing because I have a feeling my discussion is going to take a while.
Okay. I was just going to say, since we had a hard break there for a second, I may as well just come out of left field with this. So I am currently trying to read Crimson Reign, which is a comic book series that's about Crimson Dawn and Kira, specifically from the Solo movie, Kira. And
I was disappointed we were wrong about Kira too showing up.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I kind of thought that it might tie in as well because of the crime syndicates and whatnot, and that even if I forget what her name is, the actress, even if Kira herself didn't, even if they didn't get Emilia Clarke to come in and play Kira, that we might get some Crimson Dawn syndicate stuff going on, and that was why this comic was starting up. And the comic is set like Rebellion era, like maybe Rebels era, or like I don't think that they've made any. And I have only read the first issue, but I don't think that they've made any references like specifically to like whether this is before or after the first Death Star. But at any rate, I'm having trouble getting into it because I am so invested right now in the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett era that is, roughly 5 years after Return of the Jedi, that I'm having trouble generating any kind of interest for any other time period. And this has happened before when the prequels started, when the movies were coming out. I lost most of my interest for anything up until that point. An awful lot of the books had, if not all of the books, had been set post Return of the Jedi. And basically, as soon as they started coming out with stuff for Phantom Menace, I was like, all right, I'm in the prequel era now. That's the era that I care about the most. I'll still read some original trilogy comics and stuff, but like, I that was basically when I stopped reading the books that were set after Return of the Jedi. And then when the sequel movies came out, I basically was like, all right, I don't have a whole lot of interest in the prequel era stuff now. I'm mostly focused. I want to know about Poe. I want to know about Rey. I want to know about Finn. I want those stories. And now I am focused in on that 5 years after Return of the Jedi, Din Djarin, Book of Boba Fett. That's the stuff I'm most interested in, and I'm having a lot of trouble getting into, because the comics are set all over the place, like in different eras. I experienced this a little bit with Bad Batch. I like Bad Batch. I think it's a good show. It was interesting to me, but I had trouble generating the same sort of interest for it that I have had for The Mandalorian because I'm so focused on that time period. Have you guys experienced anything like that, or is this just something that is specific to me?
What I hear you saying is that you haven't read any of the new High Republic books.
I have read some of the High Republic books. I have not read anywhere near all of them, but I have.
That was my joke.
Is there more than one? I thought that there. I've only read comics from one series. Is there more than one series?
There's a lot of books.
Yeah, well, he's speaking novels, but there's the High Republic mainline. There's the High Republic Adventures. That's also from IDW, and then there's also sub books in. There's because there's essentially the High Republic ongoing, and then there's a couple of different minis. Actually, since it's brought up,
I have read some of the main series comics, and I read one of the novels, but I have not read all of the High Republic stuff, and I haven't read any of the offshoot comic book stuff.
That's a stack of comic books. You're gonna put on video with that stack of comic books, buddy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is the High Republic stuff I have. There's the High Republic mainline.
You gotta hold it up. I'm gonna end up putting you on video now.
There you go. That's for the podcast for those at home.
Yeah, I haven't read that much of the main line. I think I might have all of the main line, but I have read I think I read the first arc. So 5 or 6 issues, something like that. Yeah.
So there you go.
I like the artwork for the High Republic era.
Yeah, Trial of Shadows. Oh yeah, because the covers are all Phil Noto, which are amazing.
Yes, which is it's all very Kodor painted art style.
Yeah. There's the High Republic Adventure stuff, which is the IDW, which is still similar characters but a little more lighthearted tales. But then there's also the adventures that are.
To answer your question, Kid.
Monster of Temple Peak. So yeah, there's a lot of different High Republic comics and novels. There's also too, you have to think about the junior novels too. There are, I believe, right now 4 books out. This is just a shot in the dark, by the way, for the internet. So feel free to @ me at Rogue Jedi Gaming. But yeah, so there's a fair amount of stuff out there.
That's a shot I'm not willing to back. That's you, buddy.
Yeah, that's 100% me. But yeah, so there is some stuff out there. The thing is, I've gotten into some of it. I enjoy it, but it is still kind of like. At times, I feel like I need an anchor, okay, this is I'm in it, and I can kind of feel the rest of the world. And Yoda's still in this time period, so there's that. But I just haven't felt like I've latched on to someone, and I've listened to some of the audiobook too, and it hasn't bit like other things have. And I think it's to that point of maybe my head is in another space, and so I'm I'm still thinking about Mando and his exploits, and jumping back and forth can definitely be harder for you to feel engaged with. Even to the point, like, in a group chat I have with Kareem, he was like, wait, is Boba Fett a Mando? Because he takes off his helmet all the time. It's like, that's because you can get disconnected going around from all the different stories and be like, wait, I thought Mandalorians didn't take off their helmets, but then like we still have all of the Bo-Katan stuff. But
I mean, that's a question I even asked on this podcast. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right.
Right. But it's like it's coming back because he's jumped so far. So he's jumped back and forth so much.
I think you're right that you need a character or an anchor. For me, that's more what it's about. So if Bad Batch came back, I would still be interested in that kit. I'm invested enough in the era of like, I like characters from that era, like Cad Bane. Boba Fett's connected to Omega. There's like side characters that could possibly show up again, like Kanan could show up there again, things like that. Things in the eras that I know characters in, or the eras that I am emotionally connected to, like the Return of the Jedi era, right, is very emotional for me. Since there's no one in the High Republic era that I already know, there's no story aside from Yoda, but I mean, it's a hard pull to be like, I care enough about Yoda to read every 200-year span that he's existed. And I also don't care that much about Yoda. He kind of sucks.
He's become the Professor X in a way.
He's becoming like the bad version of Professor X, though. Like, he didn't teach Luke very well, apparently. He didn't teach anybody very well, it sounds like.
Can we segue right into Luke and Grogu from that? Because I have thoughts.
Yeah, we could do that. I think, yes, to a different degree than you, I may care even less about things that I'm not connected to, but more about things that I have been connected to. Let's talk about Luke and Grogu.
I'm going to preamble Kit real quick. I think that part of the problem is because of the, if you want to call it time dilation, but the way that Grogu and Yoda experience time make them both bad teachers and bad students, because they, like, Grogu's 50, so his concession of like, Yoda can't impart the knowledge he needs to Luke, because it's like, oh, I've experienced all this, and I'm essentially going to try. If I try and teach you, I'm teaching you at my speed, which is, this is my speed. And the same thing for Grogu is that, he can train there for 5 years. That's still a fraction of his lifespan. So how he imparts that information might be so different that he doesn't fully.
I think Luke understands that better. I think
Luke understands.
Maybe
that,
Yoda didn't. But Luke tells him.
Thing to teach.
Luke tells him, "Don't be attached. The Mando's gonna die in a fraction of your lifespan. Even if he doesn't die tomorrow or the next day, if he gets old and dies, it's still gonna be a fraction of your lifespan."
But that's kind of what I mean, though. Is like, it's gonna be hard for him to understand too.
Which is so weird. Okay, so here's one of my.
It's definitely not the lesson the Highlander taught us, right?
Right, but okay, so
what? Ken doesn't get that joke.
Okay, so we have the whole prequel trilogy where they are constantly trying to reinforce with Anakin that his attachments to his mom and to Padme are bad, and that's what's going to lead him to the dark side. But then we also get and I think to a certain degree that was right, but they had to. I think that the lesson from the prequels is that they either needed Anakin to voluntarily stop using the Force if he couldn't let go of his attachments. They needed to say, look, you have an unhealthy attachments. You either need to stop being a Jedi and stop using the Force because this is going to lead to bad things, or you need to be able to control your attachments and move on because this is the way that it works best for us. And they couldn't do that, and that was what led to the problems that Anakin had in his fall, because he couldn't lose Padme, so that was why he joined the Sith. But then in Empire, Yoda says the exact same thing to Luke, and he says, you have to let your friends go. This is a trap. Vader's using it. You need to not go save your friends. And Luke doesn't listen to him and ends up going anyway. And then at the end of Return of the Jedi, the thing that saves them all is Anakin's attachments. Because he looks at his son and is like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to save my son. And so his attachments, Luke's attachments and Anakin's attachments, are what ends up defeating the Emperor. And then 5 years later, Luke has completely abandoned everything about this and is like, Grogu, you need to not have attachments. And it's literally Luke telling a baby or a toddler of Yoda's species the exact same things that Yoda was telling him, because Yoda's like, okay, you need to not go save your friends. You need to stay here and train. And Luke is now telling Grogu, you need to not go save your friends. You need to stay here and build this lightsaber. And I was like, how this is, and this is definitely not unintentional, but like, to me, that I have trouble fixing that and reconciling that in my brain, because it seems off to me that Luke would have, within that short amount of time now that he's the teacher, be telling Grogu the exact same things that Yoda was telling him that he didn't listen to. That was why everything worked out in Return of the Jedi.
So I agree with you on points. I think that the fall of the Jedi was due to their dogmatic nature. The idea that you had to cut yourself off from attachments, whereas there's lots of talk of how it's actually Qui-Gon who would have been the best teacher, because he followed a more natural path. Like he was like, no, your attachment to the Force is more what you make it. It's, you have to find the balance within you, not the balance within. You don't have to try and balance to what they say. It's what your attachment is. And that's why Qui-Gon would have been, the best teacher for Anakin. One thing with Luke, I do agree with your idea that he is, if this is what he's saying, like, hey, you've got to either forego all of this or this, it may also be a test that he's saying, like, these are your two choices. And part of him is like, the best life for you will be to go this way, because the life of a Jedi is one of a monk-like state. And that's clearly not what you want. Maybe that he put that forth as a choice to be, okay, he's like, it's like, these are your two choices. I hope you actually take, like, without saying it, I hope you take the mithril, the Mandalorian mithril, and go off go adventures, because that will give you that balanced life. If he's having those same thoughts, because that's the point. It's a point too where Luke is still trying to discover, like, it's 5 years since the fall, so he's still learning what it is to be a master. He's still gathering ancient tomes and being like, well, what does it mean? And so, and all the problem is all the different teachings he's finding are probably still from a dogmatic time period where they're like, no, this is the cut, this is the way, you can only do this. Whereas the Jedis like Qui-Gon Jinn and Quinlan Vos didn't write books. They didn't do holocrons about, hey, these are my teachings. These are more of the gray path. These are a little more off, just that way. And so Luke's probably only getting those messages, which then those are ending up maybe saying it's what poisons him down the line, but it's definitely what's hammered into him. And he's like, oh, I don't know about Ben. I feel he's going to go to the dark side, so I should kill him now. And he's like, spoilers for stuff. But like, how does he?
I think every iota of that movie should be spoiled for everyone.
I think that, yeah. And so there's definitely things where it's like, Luke learned some of the right lessons, but then also was untaught them by time. And so he wasn't able to, I don't know.
There's a different Luke Skywalker that we all grew up with. We're reading about, right? We read about a Luke Skywalker and a Mara Jade and all the solos and how he did right by some of them and wrong by others. And he rebuilt a Jedi Order that is not the Jedi Order that has hinted at. And I think we have a universe where Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are told that Last Jedi movie will remain canon, and you just have to deal with it. and now we have a Return of the Jedi Luke and a Last Jedi Luke, and somehow they have to make them meet. And the only way to do that is to say, well, Luke didn't learn the lessons, or he at least learned enough of the lessons to say, if I'm going to rebuild the Jedi, I have to rebuild it the way the Jedi built it, which is the way that we get to The Last Jedi Luke, where he says, I rebuilt the Jedi the way that this book said, and Yoda said, well, you and I both screwed up, so burn the book. And that's fine. I don't like it because it's not the Luke that was in the books, and it's not the Luke that makes sense 5 years after Return of the Jedi, where he's probably running around the galaxy, still talking to his sister, having a good time, trying to build up the Jedi. Everybody knows what it means when he shows up because he's the dude that took down Darth Vader. You know, like all that stuff should be there, but it can't be, maybe. But I think, Ken, you did a good reading of that, which I didn't think earlier, which was that maybe though Luke isn't to the point of Ben Solo, and he still says, make your choice. I clearly think that you're making the wrong choice, but if you can't give up your attachments, don't live like Anakin. Go with your attachment, because otherwise there's no point. It's just going to end poorly.
It seems ridiculous that you're asking the equivalent of a 2-year-old to make that decision. Like,
I can't get behind that either.
Yeah. I understand he's technically 50 years old, but like, I mean, in terms of growth.
Yeah, what answer do you think? You know, the person that loved and took care of this thing, and this person who makes him stand on rocks and not eat frogs and shoots lasers at him is like, choose me or choose him. It's like, I get to fly around in a starship with that guy. Get me the hell out of here.
You can just keep this lightsaber. I'll see you later.
It's to me, it's more.
I'll take the dark saber. That's good. It's fine.
But it's crazy to me to have put that in episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, that now this gigantic emotional ending to Mandalorian season 2, where he takes off his helmet and we're never going to see Grogu again. And all these people that are out there, that's the last moment they've seen of the Mandalorian. And like, it's that very cool, deep, heart-wrenching, like, God, what a great ending to that. And they're going to show back up in season 3 and be like, what happened?
Well, they just
should have been watching. They should have been watching Boba Fett. That's on them. I'm sorry.
It's all one story.
Yeah, they need all this stuff of like, oh, well, I'm going to skip Hawkeye. But then when Moon Knight comes out, who I really love, I was like, no, go back and watch Hawkeye and then watch Moon Knight and be like,
what?
Cool.
Wait, how are those connected?
I am not going to watch Hawkeye, and I am going to watch Moon Knight. So stop trying to make me watch Hawkeye. I don't care about Hawkeye.
Watch Hawkeye.
I don't care.
When Grogu
I don't care
shows
about
up
him.
In Moon Knight, you're going to be like, wait, I don't understand how Grogu has a bow and arrow and he's got the darksaber. You're not going to know.
It's because Moon Knight is imagining him. He's got I forget what his actual clinical diagnosis is, and I don't want to say the wrong thing, but
they changed the term for it too.
Yeah. But that's why he's seeing Grogu, and that'll make total sense to me. I don't need to watch Hawkeye.
Did I miss a connection between Hawkeye and Moon Knight?
No, just that Moon Knight's the next Disney Plus series we have is Moon Knight, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Can I spoil something for you, Kit?
Sure.
Did you like those Netflix shows?
I didn't watch any of the Netflix shows. I always kind of meant to go back and watch Daredevil and to a lesser extent Luke Cage, but I never actually got to them. And then I heard that how dark and gritty they were, and I like my comic book movies and my comic book TV shows to be lighter. That's not why I go to comic book. It's not like you can't make that sort of stuff, but that's not what I go to comic book movies and comic book TV shows for. So it just kind of sounds like it's interesting that
you mentioned it that way. That's kind of cool, because what's cool about Hawkeye is that it sits above that layer of griminess in the way they made it, and just below the surface you're like, I see. This is like we're skimming the top of that Netflix stuff, and then immediately after we skim the top of that Netflix stuff, they're like, hey, remember that Netflix bad guy? We got him. He's here. It's the same actor, same bad guy, same everything.
Are those Netflix series actually set in the MCU? Like, are they canon?
They were not canon, but they might be now.
Okay. Are they still up on Netflix, or are they pulled?
They're pulled.
They're still up on Netflix.
No, I thought they pulled them.
Did they pull? They're canceled, but I think they still have them.
Oh, okay. Well, I would not be surprised though if by the time we get to Moon Knight, there might be more than one character running around from those Netflix shows. Is what I'm going to say about Hawkeye.
Okay.
They're still on Netflix, by the way.
Okay.
Just confirmed. Yeah.
I always kind of feel like I should go and watch at least like the first season of Daredevil, and I really have been meaning to watch that for like 10 years, or I don't remember when it came out. But
I honestly can say this as hold on. I gotta block Kareem before I say this. It's the best version of the Punisher you're ever gonna get.
There's no version of the Punisher that I am gonna want to get.
You didn't want to watch Warzone where he rocket launchers a dude while he's doing parkour?
I can sum this up and end this discussion right now.
Just, like I said, I had to block Kareem before.
I'm going to quote Stan the Man Lee. Superheroes don't murder people. That is not what they do. And
that's good because he might be not a superhero.
Yes.
Like Boba Fett is not really a hero. You know, I think a lot of people went into that show thinking, and we talked about it. It's not just people that were not in the know, but people like us that were like, are they going to redeem this character? Or are we going to try and like create an arc where he becomes a good guy? He's not a good guy by the end of that. He eats whatever fruit from rebels on the street, like the Godfather.
He doesn't eat it. He gives it off to Black Chrysanthemum, which part of me is like, he's smart enough to know, like, I'm not just going to eat this from anybody. But then he gives it to Black Chrysanthemum. He's like, you're strong enough. You'll survive if there's any poison. Go right ahead. That part threw me off. Like, I was like, is he just going to eat that? Like, this is still a town. Like, in my head, I'm still like, I'm too, I don't trust enough people that I'm like, I'm not just going to take this on the street. I'm the daimyo. I just had assassination attempts against me. And then he hands it off the Melu run to Black Chrysanthemum, which is awesome. Oh,
so I mean, by the end of it though, I don't think he's a good guy. I think he's a guy that has done right by people around him, but I don't think he's going to stand up for honor or whatever like the Mandalorian would do.
Yeah.
He specifically says it earlier in the show that he's going to rule with honor. So I think he's going to at least try. He might fail, but
he says with respect though, doesn't he?
Is it with respect? Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So it's like it's not so much that he's gonna be like, oh, you know, we're straight and narrow. Although I am surprised that he's like, no more spice trade at all. I'm like, that just like the same feeling I had when.
So that's a Corleone thing. That's like a specific reference to The Godfather. The Godfather guys, they're like, no drugs. The Sopranos, same thing. No drugs.
Okay.
So that's one of those, the righteousness of the upstanding criminal, right? Like I do crimes, but I don't do crimes that hurt the people that are underneath me. I'm not saying it makes sense. I'm just saying that's a through line of other things they're mimicking is the like anti, because the drugs hurt my people, right? I don't know where I was going with that, but
you're informing me. That's
he was gonna rule with respect, but all those people betrayed him, so they're all dead.
They're all dead now. Yeah,
including his two Gamorrean guards, which I'm just like,
they just shoved them off a cliff.
We don't know that they're dead, and everybody in Mos Espa has a canvas awning on their house,
and you can back to tank mod anybody.
Yeah, we could have like Robo Pigs and Robo Cobb later on.
So that's a good one, Ken. I like Robo Cobb. So, what do we think Cobb is gonna have? Like, because I think he gets shot in the shoulder, right?
Yeah, right.
So like robot arm Cobb.
He gets right shoulder
from Thundercat.
Yeah, he gets right shoulder. Good guy spotted. So he'll probably lose his right arm.
Yeah, because I mean that affects his draw. That's why he shot him there, is because that way he couldn't draw on him. And then he just obliterates the deputy. Who I'm like, if you just gone back inside, I have the feeling that if the deputy would have stayed inside, that there wouldn't have been a shootout there.
No, Cobb wasn't going to draw. You could tell Cobb wasn't going to draw.
And so Cade wasn't going to draw. He wasn't like, you're not going to push me. I'm not going to push you. I'm getting my point across. It's going to end right here, and I'm going to walk off into the sunset and go me and Toto 360 are going to grab a beer.
I mean, so Cad Bane knew who Cobb Vanth was. He clearly respected him and knew that he had to pay attention and be ready to draw. Yeah. I don't think he ever thought he would lose the draw.
No. But I don't think he ever...
I bet Cad Bane was going to kill him anyway.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Interesting.
If Cad Bane didn't talk him into doing a shootout in the street, he probably either would have shot him in the street, I think, or blown up the sheriff's office. I don't think there's any way Cad Bane's leaving with Cobb Vanth still ambulatory.
Interesting that he didn't try to obliterate Cobb Vanth, though.
Yeah. He decimated the like
put holes in that deputy.
Ebony was like, oh, I think he got shot twice, and I'm like, I think it's just one to Vanth and then like 3 or 4 to the deputy because he's mouthing off like a punk.
Yeah.
And then like we go back and rewatch it, like, yeah, he hits him in the shoulder, so he's not able to draw on him. Like that's out of the question, unless he reaches over and grabs his other. But he's done. But the deputy's just wiped clean. Like the no saving throw. You're done.
I like the earlier in that episode. You can't park your ship here. Did you hear me? Yeah, I heard you.
Yes.
That
pretty good.
I know that I'm pretty sure that Robert Rodriguez didn't direct the episode with the shootout. That exact shot of like the deputy flying back after being shot, into the wall, flying backwards after getting shot 4 times or whatever. That felt so Robert Rodriguez. Like that exact shot just seemed like it should have been something right out of like Desperado.
Well,
he could have shot that section.
Well, even if he didn't, I mean, the show has his vibe, right? Like the Bryce Dallas Howard episode feels like a Bryce Dallas Howard. Dave Filoni directed the Cad Bane one, which makes some sense. He probably had some help aesthetically.
Yeah. I would imagine too, like, because I mean, I know that there's certain Geld rules that as long as Filoni directed like 80% of it, he gets solo credit. But even if you have like a second AD and doing those shots, it would have still given the title.
It doesn't say. I mean, in here it doesn't say. I guess I could go to IMDb. The cinematographer might be the same across the episodes, and that would create a more.
It also could have been Filoni. He might have just said, I'm going to do this shootout. It's going to be like a Western. But this exact shot, in all of our other callbacks to other cinema, this exact shot, I'm doing a callback to a Robert Rodriguez style shootout.
The episode that I felt definitely stood out on its own as just not even close to all the others was the first of The Mandalorian Returns. And that was Bryce Howard, and she just did her own thing. She was just like, this is a Mando episode. I'm shooting it like my Mando episodes.
But then also the other half is on Tatooine redoing the Naboo fighter. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to end by talking about something that I wanted to talk about earlier before we got derailed. How'd you like that ending song of the series there, buddy? The redux of the intro music with them yelling "Fett" instead.
Oh, I have thoroughly enjoyed. I know that you didn't like the theme song as much as I did.
So I want to say
I have thoroughly enjoyed the music this season. I will say that, and I bought the theme song when it came out. I bought the first 4 episodes soundtrack when it came out, and as soon as I find out about the second half, dropping, I will get that too.
So cinematographer for most of the series, 5 of the 7 episodes, is David Klein, and including the Desert Stranger. So that helps create consistency. I did not respect the song as much as I should have, because a lot of the music felt a little less. A lot of the Mando music sticks out in my head. I can picture it when I'm not thinking about it. This one just was more like ambiance music, like, and that's fine. Not everything has to be John Williams scores for every instance of a TV show, but in terms of how memorable something becomes as that series built up, that intro music for Boba Fett really started to fit better, I think, in terms of like early on it felt too dramatic for the series that we were getting, and as things started to build up, it was like, oh yes, I do like this for how intense the moments are becoming. You know,
I liked it because it felt specifically the theme song felt very, very Western. Like it definitely felt like something that you could get in a 60s Western, and I really liked that. I thought that was I mean, I like the Mandalorian music.
But the Mandalorian music is definitely more Star Wars space.
I agree.
Thematically engaged music, where this was so separated from the music of the show, where like there was never really like an orchestral version of the Boba Fett theme. But you know what there was in the middle of Book of Boba Fett, like redone string versions of the Mandalorian theme. It was like in there, you know. So that one
was cool.
Oh my god, that was so good.
The like cello version.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah.
So like that to me is how Star Wars music was originally designed by Williams. He loved to reintroduce, you know, like Leia's theme has been reused a bunch of times with a bunch of different instruments. And that Mando music has been kind of similar to that. And that's why that Boba introduction never really stuck with me until very close to the end of this, where it's like episode 6 and 7, give me that. Yeah. I'm ready for it. And then to end the show on like, so my plan this entire time has been to shout Fett, Boba Fett, Boba Fett, but I didn't want to ruin it until this very last moment. It was very good.
Yeah.
Very good. I went from very lukewarm on the ideas behind the show. I enjoyed watching it 1 through 4 and was like left wondering what we were going to get. And then by 5 through 7, it was like, this is really the slowest burn Star Wars I think I've ever seen. And I really appreciated it. And where did you guys end on this?
Ken, you go ahead. I want to sugarcoat everything at the end.
It's fine. I mean, I was definitely very happy. I was surprised with how deep we hit with to the other characters that we got, and I liked the way we ended with Boba kind of being that the protectorate of Mos Espa. Is that so many different Moses now? I'm like,
Espa my brain is where he is.
It's Mos Espa. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it's like I like all the different locations and all the we didn't even talk about Peli showing up and like, oh, I've got the kid with me, and like
Grogu. That's a terrible name. I'm not calling you that.
I literally had to pause it and be like, that's gross. When she spit out her tooth, I was like, oh god.
Oh man, there's so much. Yeah.
Get me high, me beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice tails.
Yeah, and then also too, like, because those two actors have a history, you know.
Seeing their dynamic in the middle of a gunfight was great. Of like, she's never really. I mean, they had that gunfight in the hangar, but like, she was never a part of it, and now she's like running around and like trying to manage Grogu and like and stay out of the way. It was great. It was fun.
I can't wait for the Black Series figure of her with a pit droid, so I can have another pit droid.
She better be missing a tooth.
It's an alternate head.
Yeah. I know I enjoyed it overall, like nothing but like sweetness. I mean, there's little things like I love that they brought in those not Scorponok, but there's another term for them, but those two droids that with the shields and stuff, and they also like they paid attention, like they drew on that Clone Wars stuff of like there's a going back to I believe it's when they actually introduce oh my god, he's from Rogue One, Guerrera Saw. Yeah, and so they there's that moment in there where they're showing like these shields are based off the amount of kinetic energy and force that you're trying to push through on them. And so
Black Chrysanthemum tries to push through it.
Yeah, but he's also got that metal in his hands, and he's like, there's things like, and he's pushing a lot of force where it's like if you just try and roll in a thermal detonator, boom, they can get through because it's just X amount of mass versus force, and boom. And then I love that I'm like, if they just try and go through, they could just walk into it if they use the right amount of like speed, And Abby's like, really? Like they can just do like, yeah, like, but in my head too, I'm like, well, it is Beskar, so maybe it has a different thing. And then Mando at one point when there's enough force on the front side, he's just like, zap, 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 zap. It's awesome. And that he's getting more adept with the saber too. And all the knowledge we've learned from that of like Sabine's like, oh, it's getting lighter. And then in the early on, he's like, oh, it's getting heavier. Like that shows kind of, it pulls back to the idea of like, oh, non-force wielders using a lightsaber has an effect on the physics of it. It's weird and it's mystical and fun. I don't know. I'm so happy with the whole series. I'm very happy with it. I'm looking forward to Kenobi. I part of me is like, as much as I want Kenobi, I do want to get farther ahead. Like I want to go, okay, well, what about Ahsoka? What about Mando?
It's cool that Kenobi's 6 episodes and done. Like we know what we're gonna get is a miniseries, and okay, you don't think they're gonna be done?
I think that there's enough stories there, especially because we've never, if a kid, you can probably correct me here. I don't think we've ever gotten the story of how Kenobi met Satine Kryze. Like we've gotten hints of it. Yeah, we've gotten hints of it. And that's where Kenobi was almost ready to leave the Jedi Order for Satine.
I don't think they're going back that far in time. I think they're literally just going straight to Tatooine and telling a story.
I mean, but that's just it. Like if the vibe hits and they're like, well, Filoni wants to tell that story. They can do they're going to have they said that they're going to have what's his fate? Vader and him, which that to me doesn't make sense. Like you have to do that with flashbacks because otherwise when it's like, oh yeah, I went that one time I ran into Obi-Wan. Like, no, like you don't just run into Obi-Wan and then like, he's out there somewhere. It's fine. I'll catch him later. Like there has to be a gap. To me, it doesn't make sense that at some point he runs into Vader while he should be watching Luke, and then Vader's like, I'll catch you later sometime down the line. Like it's like it should be flashbacks and just like, oh, this is this, or feeling him out in the Force. Like, because Vader knows he didn't kill him, but he also knows that he's in hiding. Like they've got Inquisitors scrubbing the galaxy trying to find Jedi. Either
he eventually
turn them or kill them.
He's gonna have to cut himself off like Seer did in order to hide, and right? So the end of that miniseries is gonna be him realizing he has to cut himself off from the Force.
The end is just him running into Luke on the planet, and we have stories of him on Tatooine protecting the Skywalkers, or I don't know, Lars, protecting the Lars family. So he does different things. He runs into he's the one who gives Black Chrysanthemum the scar on his face. So like there are stories of him on that planet just doing stuff. So I'm like, I want to see the stories we don't have yet, given they can just retell those stories and just do it like now with a live action flourish. But I that's why I'm like I'd be good with a couple seasons of Obi-Wan telling us stories of him and Qui-Gon running around becoming Jedi and kicking ass. And, oh, yeah, this is the one time that me and Quinlan Vos were on a mission together. And that this is why I learned to stay on this side of the Force. And he's over here. Like, all these stories, we have old novels of the time period a bit. So it's like, I'd be happy to have that. Give us a new young Obi-Wan Kenobi and give voiceover or maybe show him communing with Qui-Gon Jinn and being like, you forgot that your teachings on this planet. It's like, you're right, Master. And they go give me like just the same way I want like the Calrissian Chronicles of just old Billy D. Williams telling stories, and then they flash back and it's Donald Glover. Like I love
that show too.
The Young Indiana Jones was a series that I thought was such a great idea. I haven't watched it in years, but it's also like because the last episode of that, spoilers, is Harrison Ford being like sitting back and like, that's the story, blah 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 blah. I'm like, that's fun. I love that. It's fun storytelling to me. But I'm not Kit. I don't have my finger on the pulse.
Yeah, I was gonna say you could always hope, but Kit's reaction is not looking good for you.
Well, that depends.
I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure that Obi-Wan is not gonna be aimed at me in the same way that this last series is. Right, well, I am not expecting that. I obviously I loved Book of Boba Fett. I had a
You're wearing a Rancor Keeper shirt.
I know. Starring Danny Trejo, who I specifically said in an earlier episode that was what I was hoping that we would get a Danny Trejo in Star Wars moment. Also, by the way, I will just mention that as far as I know, he has not been named. He definitely has not been named in the series. They haven't told you what Danny Trejo's character's name is in the series. He may be named on Wikipedia. I haven't checked.
What about Fit Kisto?
No. So the original, the old Rancor Keeper, the one from Jabba's palace, his name was Machetekili. Yeah. So until I am told otherwise, this is Machetekili.
It's Machete.
Yep. I love this show. It's not like I don't have moments where I thought that they could have been done better.
Yeah, sure.
The mods on their scooters chasing that chase. I know it was supposed to be done for laughs, but I just felt like technically it wasn't executed all that well. There's lots of moments like that. The part in the very last episode when Fennec shows up to save the mods, when they're pinned down and she shows up and saves them, and then she hops down and her bike is literally 3 feet from where the mods are being shot at, and I'm like, you guys didn't see her like pull over and park that right there and then climb up the wall? Like, there's parts in this show where I'm like, this is not perfectly executed, but I loved this show. To me, and I know that lots of people felt differently. To me, the transition from the first 4 episodes into the 2 Mando-centric episodes and then into the finale, it just felt right, and it flowed just right for me. I didn't ever feel like it was disjointed, and I felt like those last 3 episodes were so terrific and such great. This whole series and was such great Star Wars, and I'm so happy where we are right now with the television, and we've got a Rogue Squadron movie coming in the somewhat near future. I'm still not entirely sure when that is now because stuff got pushed back, but we got a Rogue Squadron movie coming that I'm excited for. We've got another season of Mandalorian that I have loved all of so far. I've loved Boba Fett. I am looking forward to the Obi-Wan thing, although I will say that, like, I know that this series isn't going to. I'm not going to be disappointed when this series is not aimed squarely at me like Book of Boba Fett was. I don't expect it to be. I am less excited. Like Ken, I'm more excited to find out what's happening in Mando season 3 in the fall than I am for the Kenobi stuff. I will still watch the Kenobi stuff, and I'm sure I will enjoy the Kenobi stuff. But Ahsoka and Mandalorian season 3, that's what I'm most looking forward to. And I feel like with Favreau and Filoni and all of the other people like Robert Rodriguez and Bryce Dallas Howard and all of the great directors that they have brought in to work on this, I feel like we are in a really good place for Star Wars right now, and I'm very optimistic and I'm very happy with the state of Star Wars in general and specifically this show. And even though like I said, I'm mostly focused on that era, I'm still gonna watch and enjoy the Bad Batch when it comes out, and I'm still gonna watch and enjoy the Kenobi when it comes out. And I feel like we're in a second golden age for Star Wars, and I'm very happy with the state of things.
You've encompassed my entire thoughts about how I felt when I realized it was like we were watching a new version of Shadows. This may not be the best thing I've ever seen. A lot of it feels like it was acted on as a stage play, not on a stage because of the environments being small, but the way that it was filmed in many instances, like when you're talking about Fennec having her bike there, it was because it felt like it was all on a stage that I was looking at. There was only so much room for Fennec's bike to be somewhere, and she had to ride it across the stage for all the audience to see. So it had to be, like on the third of the stage where the characters couldn't see it. You know what I mean? Like that aesthetic of it being kind of like a weird farce on a stage, probably rubbed a lot of people wrong. But like when you got to the end, and even though I don't feel like I know Boba Fett any better or care about what he's going to do in his retirement on Tatooine or any of that type, I still felt like I had read Shadows of the Empire for the first time. It was like the universe now is alive with other things and characters, and they're all interacting with each other instead of being new versions of themselves. Like the new movies were creating new versions of the old movies, and they were in the same universe, but they weren't interacting. And the Mandalorian even didn't really interact with anything yet until the very last second of season 2, and they're like, hey, by the way, that Luke Skywalker guy's alive in this universe. And now all the toys are coming together in the same place in the Book of Boba Fett. And I think this is you hit the nail on the head, where it's like that moment of the gloves have come off, man. Favreau and Filoni can use all the tools in the toolbox.
And we're getting, I mean, like Deborah Chow, who worked on many episodes of The Mandalorian, is now doing Kenobi. And like it's like in football when they talk about coaching trees, right? Like you start with Bill Parcells, and then like he had his assistant coaches, and then they all became coaches, and then like their assistant coaches became coaches and stuff. It's like that's what's happening right now. They are finding all of this great talent, and they're bringing these people into the universe, and then those people are going off and working on their projects, and I think it's great. I get
exactly what you're saying. It's funny to me that Ken left the call when you mentioned Bill Parcells. I guess he's not a football fan.
No, you brought sports into my Star Wars talk, and I'm like, you sons of guns! Like, like I had to accept pod racing. Essentially, I had to accept NASCAR, and now you're gonna start bringing other sports ball stuff into it.
Wait until Mando season 3, when they have to race the Naboo starfighter to win a tournament so that he can, you know what I mean? Some Trandoshan
that would be awesome.
Spice Kessel run or something.
Yeah.
Unless it's the Washington Sentinels, I don't want to hear about sports. Okay, like that's the only NFL team I care about. Like that's.
Yeah.
What about the Cleveland Guardians, who I am hoping so badly that they get that hat that Ruffalo had that had Rocket Raccoon on the front of it. I hope that is the new Cleveland hat, is just a hat that they're the Cleveland Guardians, and it's just a picture of Rocket Raccoon on their hat.
That would be legit.
But they call them the Washington Commandos. That's ridiculous. It just the name
Commanders,
and the branding
Commanders, but yeah.
Commanders. So,
yes. Yeah, I don't care about that.
The best part of that is that they're just going to be called the Commies.
Oh,
okay. So the funniest suggestion for their new team name that I heard, the funniest suggestion for their new team name that I heard was like 2 years ago when somebody, so instead of the picture of the Native American on the side of the helmet, they took that picture off and they put a picture of a side profile of the owner and put that on the side of the helmet, and they're like, we should just call them the Washington Jackasses.
By the way, for those not catching my reference, the Washington Sentinels was the Keanu Reeves movie where he and a bunch of replacement players take over.
It's called The Replacements.
Game. So, yes, that's the reference I was making, because if they would have named them the Sentinels and used that branding, they could have gotten me to care about the sport, but they didn't.
Right, but I'm just saying they named the Cleveland baseball team the Guardians, and yeah. I'm just saying if they went with that hat, like, I feel like you could get behind that.
If they did, but they're not that good. They're still being sports ball people, and I don't care.
You can't use the cred from Shane Falco, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Not in the real world. All right. Well, if we're talking about football, we must be done talking about Star Wars. So
I didn't want to, but someone brought it into my.
I know we don't start till May for the next one's show, probably. So we'll have to think up a topic.
It's going to be a rough 2 months.
I know.
It's a good thing that I have 2 seasons of The Mandalorian and 1 season of Book of Boba Fett to go back and watch over and over.
You shouldn't have watched Prodigy so fast. You shouldn't have watched Prodigy so fast. That's why I kept it until now.
I have really been looking forward to that show, though. I didn't stay up until midnight to watch it, but like I would always look forward to it on Wednesdays, and Wednesday at lunch I'd try and watch it, or Wednesday night I'd watch it, and I always look forward to that. But then the next day I also really look forward to watching Prodigy. So I don't know what I'm going to do with all my free time now, because there's not as many shows coming out every single day that that I've been used to for the last like 2 months.
Read a High Republic book, I guess. I don't know. I don't know.
I can't bring myself to like. I used to read like. I used to read like 2 books a month. I was in.
It's kids, man. That's what it is.
Yeah, I know. But before my daughter was born, I had that like Facebook. I don't care about Hawkeye. Stop trying to make me care about Hawkeye. I don't care about the character Hawkeye. Anyway, I used to read Goodreads. I used to track my books in Goodreads, and which is like social media for reading. And I literally used to read 2 books a month for years. And then like my daughter's born, and I don't know if I've read 2 books in the last.
I read 2 books a year
total. Yeah. And it's like.
I'm exhausted by reading because I read to the kids all the time. I fall asleep. Yeah.
I have trouble. I read to go to sleep anyway, but now I'm so tired all the time. And like when the kids finally are asleep at like 9 or 9:30, if I start reading, I'm just going to fall asleep in 5 minutes on the couch anyway. So like,
absolutely.
I can't get through anything. I don't though, because I have so many other shows. Like I'm never going to get to Hawkeye. I'm never going to finish Loki.
Yeah.
I'm not going to watch WandaVision. I would like to watch Eternals. I'd like Shang-Chi. I might get to Black Widow at some point.
Oh, you still haven't watched Black Widow?
No.
Oh,
I'm not avoiding that one, but like I just haven't gotten around to it. Maybe while I'm waiting for Kenobi, I'll have a 2-hour.
Yeah, we have some Marvel to catch up on. We have Shang-Chi and Eternals at least.
I just watched Eternals this weekend.
I was glad I watched Shang-Chi.
We got to do all those spider people movies as well.
Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to the end of this month when.
And if you happen to watch those Venom films, you might enjoy them.
You mean, like I said in our group chat, the fact that you said that they were fun is as acceptable. You didn't say that they were good.
I didn't pay any money to watch the first Venom movie. I haven't watched the second one. But it was on, I think, FX. And one night, and so I watched it, and I had a good time.
If you enjoyed the first one, you'll enjoy the second one.
Okay.
There is a grip of lines
fun to be had
that I laughed out loud at.
And I have really enjoyed the animated Spider-Man and the Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home. I have really enjoyed those movies. So, like, I am really looking forward. I have not watched whatever the new one is. I can't remember what the title
No Way
is.
Home.
No Way Home yet, but as soon as that sucker drops on where Paramount I can download Plus. It from my house, I'm gonna. Is it coming out on Paramount Plus first?
I don't know. It's a Sony jam, so I'm not sure technically where it belongs. But it doesn't necessarily pop up on Disney Plus because it is a Sony product.
Yeah,
in association with Marvel.
As soon as I can buy that digitally, I will buy it and watch it happily.
Follow us on all the social medias at
We Were
Gamers.
Yeah. Go to YouTube.
There's like a Godzilla TV show coming out.
Yeah, that's true. In that MonsterVerse. So
I don't have any idea when it's coming out, but yeah.
Oh.
They're doing a MonsterVerse show in that same universe with Godzilla, but I have worries about that. But We Were Gamers on YouTube.
You weren't gonna bring up Peacemaker, were you? Or whatever it is. Peacekeeper.
No.
Okay.
Peace.
We could talk about Suicide Squad next time. I have thoughts, but we don't have time today.
That's another show where I'm like, I kind of want to watch it, but I just don't. I'm not avoiding it.
Spoilers. He killed Rick Flag. I'm not into it. Until then, We Were Gamers, all one word, on YouTube. Go watch there. I make a lot of fun stuff on the videos for people to look at. Thanks to Kit's and Ken's long-term badgering that I should add stuff on those. So I did.